One of the scientists who came to the forefront with his work in the field of physics and mathematics in the past is undoubtedly Albert Einstein. Although Albert Einstein was not a scientist who invented tangible objects, his theories continue to be valid in many areas today. For example, Einstein is best known for developing the special and general theory of relativity, which was widely accepted and helped to complicate and expand the theories put forward by Isaac Newton. Today, we know him especially in our country from his photos that we think are crazy and go crazy. I would also like to mention a few interesting features of this famous genius. It is known that Einstein took regular short naps during the day, in order not to sleep too much, sleeping in his armchair with a spoon in his hand and a tray underneath. It is said that he wakes up as soon as he falls asleep and drops the spoon. In fact, there are still such interesting habits, but in order not to get away from the subject of our video, let's talk about Albert Einstein's life slowly. Albert Einstein was born in Germany in 1879 to a family of Jewish origin. In the summer of 1880, his family moved to Munich, during which time Einstein's father and uncle started an electric company, and when Albert was 2.5 years old, his sister Maja was born. Known to this world for his intelligence, Albert Einstein, interestingly enough, had speech difficulties before he started school. His mother and father were worried and took him to the doctor. Sick in bed at the age of 4 or 5, his father had given him a magnetic compass to cheer him up. He had found the movement of the compass needle to be quite mysterious at that age and aroused great curiosity in him. In fact, we can say that he knows himself after this incident. When Einstein was 5, they enrolled him in a Catholic Christian primary school near their home, which they thought provided a better education. After Einstein started school, he started to feel uncomfortable with the strict discipline and especially wrote understanding at school, because it was not for him and he found it unnecessary. But even though he didn't like school, he was getting high grades. He skipped the freshman year and was top of his class most semesters. Einstein's mother wanted her children to meet music at an early age, and her mother took Albert to violin lessons. He sent his sister Maja to piano lessons. Albert started violin lessons at the age of 6 and continued until the age of 14. He particularly liked Mozart and wanted to improve his technique to be able to play them. He eventually became an amateur violinist who could play what he could, though not as much as Mozart. At the age of 9.5, Einstein left the Catholic primary school and began studying at the Lutpold Gymnasium. The gymnasium attached great importance to ancient Greek and Latin in particular. In the curriculum also as modern languages, geography, there was also literature and mathematics. Einstein, on the other hand, loved sharp logic in Latin and mathematics and got top marks in these classes. Unfortunately, the school he attended was much more disciplined than the previous one. But we said that Einstein didn't like it at all, that he was in constant conflict with the teachers anyway. Even his teachers disliked Einstein's independent and rebellious personality. We mentioned that Einstein's family was Jewish, and as a Jewish tradition, his family invited a poor student to dinner at their home, and a poor Jewish university student named Talmud attended a dinner every week. The Talmud's visits began when Einstein was 10 and lasted for 5 years. Einstein, on the other hand, enjoyed talking to an older university student. Already in the Talmud, he soon sensed that Einstein was not an ordinary boy. Science together, they were talking about mathematics and philosophy. When Einstein was just 13, the Talmud brought him Immanuel Kant's Critique of Pure Reason. Einstein had no trouble understanding that book at this age and started talking about Kant all the time at school. As you can see, things are getting so interesting that Einstein, who had speech difficulties and was hospitalized for this condition, now stands out with his intelligence. Talmud, he was constantly bringing various popular science books to him, and Einstein studied them with great enthusiasm. Even once, he brought Euclid's Elements. Einstein began working on the problems in the book. In fact, before the end of the summer, not only did he solve all the problems, he also found alternative proofs to theorems. By the way, I would like to talk about the jump and while I remember it. Einstein's parents were a couple of Jewish descent, but they were not religious. Einstein, on the other hand, started taking religious lessons at home as a Jewish tradition when he was 11 years old. During this period, Einstein began to have a great religious desire and wanted to set an example for his non-religious family by fulfilling all religious requirements. He was resting on the Sabbath, which is considered the day of worship and rest in Judaism. He ate only food that was halal for Jews and even wrote religious songs himself. but actually it didn't last that long. Because he saw that the scientific books he read in a year contradicted the holy books, he then began to doubt any kind of authority and developed a skeptical attitude. When he was 12, his engineer uncle Jacob brought him a book of algebra. Einstein decided to study his algebra book that summer and asked his uncle for problems to solve. He had developed himself so much that he could solve even the most difficult and complex problems. Even that summer, Einstein made a proof of the Pythagorean theorem again. By the age of 16, he had learned differential and integral calculations and analytical geometry on his own. Just at this time, the electricity company that his father and his uncle founded in 1880 went bankrupt in 1894. Here, Nikola Tesla, whom we love very much and whose life we talked about in the previous video, comes into play. In a way, it changed the fate of the family. The reason is Tesla, who revolutionized America with the patent of alternating current in 1888. Unexpectedly, Einstein's father's company went bankrupt because his father could not find the capital to establish the new technology in Munich. By this time, Einstein was 15 years old and had 3 more years to finish high school. After spending 6 months alone in Munich, he became depressed and began to get nervous. When this problem became unbearable, he convinced his family doctor and received a report stating that he had to be with his family due to nervous problems. Einstein left the gymnasium without informing his family and came to live with his family in Italy. So as you can see, Einstein, although technically a high school dropout when he came to Italy, he had no intention of abandoning his education. He promised his family that he would study alone to enter the Federal Polytechnic School in Switzerland, as they did not listen to his parents and came to him because the Polytechnic didn't want a high school diploma for admission. And then he went to Switzerland in 1895 and took the admission exam at the Polytechnic. T was necessary to be over the age of 18 to take the exam, and a special permit was obtained for Einstein to take the exam at the age of 16. Einstein applied to the engineering department following his father's advice. Although he received very high grades in mathematics and physics in the admissions examination, he could not pass because he failed in other departments. The director of the Polytechnic saw Einstein's potential and recommended that he get a diploma in a Swiss high school and reapply. These years were perhaps the best years of Einstein's youth. The high school suggested by the director of the Polytechnic was ideal for Einstein because respected T was led by Jost Winteler, an open-minded teacher. The school had a relaxed atmosphere and students were encouraged to think independently. This approach suited Einstein's personality. In 1896, he passed the final exams with high grades at that school. Einstein graduated and was admitted to the Polytechnic despite being 6 months younger than the required age. However, there is an incident that Einstein, he did not like the strict discipline of Germany. He did not want to do compulsory military service. He told his father that he wanted to renounce his German citizenship and become a Swiss citizen. His father agreed with some hesitation and signed the necessary papers. On January 28, 1896, Einstein received the official papers depriving him of German citizenship, but did not acquire Swiss citizenship until 1901, so for 5 years, Einstein was stateless. Einstein met his future wife, Mileva Mari, at the Polytechnic, where he studied. After studying pharmacy for a period in 1896, he moved to the physics department. They were classmates in Einstein's first year, and a romantic relationship began between the two during this period. They decided to get married in their last year of college. Einstein and Mileva often study physics together. They were reviewing books and discussing these issues. Einstein started to be disrespectful during this period, and he would pay for this attitude after graduation. Without further ado, let's move on to this event. In 1900, he graduated from the university with a physics degree. He wanted to find an assistant position at the university so he could do research for his doctorate. But during his university years, he angered many of his professors with his rebellious attitudes that I just mentioned. His professors also said that Einstein didn't attend the lectures. He didn't like to study the subjects he wanted. After writing letters of recommendation to professors, Einstein was unable to find a position at the Polytechnic. In other universities, he sought positions by submitting his own research papers, but received no positive response from them either. After graduating and all I've told you, Einstein spent 2 years struggling to find a teaching job. The father of a former classmate told him at a patent office in Bern he got a job as an assistant inspector. 1905 was the most productive year of Einstein's life. 4 articles published in the journal Physics Annals in 1 year revolutionized the understanding of modern physics, and these articles: photoelectric effect, Brownian motion, special relativity, and mass energy equation. He was even awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1921 for his work on the photoelectric effect. Even in today's world, these theories are still used. For example, to give an example, there are navigation devices that we use in our cars, namely GPS systems. The satellites these devices are connected to take into account the effect of relativity when determining your position. Because even satellites cannot approach the speed of light, the delay makes the measurement inaccurate. So the difference is very clear. If the GPS was not calculated according to the effect of relativity, the petrol station, which is 800 meters away today, would be shown 8 kilometers away just 1 day later. I would like to take all of these theories with examples in this way, but I think it would be better to shoot in detail in other videos instead of making the video so long. I'd be happy if you let me know your thoughts on this in the comments. Around this time, another change took place in Albert Einstein's married life. Einstein had a love affair with his cousin Elsa during his marriage to Mileva Maric. He married her in 1919, a few months after his divorce from Mileva. The couple had no children, but Einstein adopted Elsa's 2 daughters, Ilse and Margot, as his daughters from a previous marriage. The death of this famous genius was on April 18, 1955. Albert Einstein suffered from internal bleeding, and although doctors advocated the necessity of surgery, Albert Einstein refused the surgery with the following words: "I want to go whenever I want. It is unpleasant to prolong life artificially. I used my share, now is the time to go, and I want to do it gracefully." And 76 years old, he died at 1:55 a.m. at Princeton Hospital. However, the event is not limited to these, because Einstein had a will. He did not want any part of his body examined, but after his death this was not taken seriously, and his brain was removed and stolen a few hours after his death. Of course, Einstein's family, whose brain was stolen, was in shock, and when the people who stole it swore that they would use the brain in scientific research. His family gave up on this request and, with the permission of his son, divided his brain into 240 pieces and sent it to various scientists for research. Even without knowing it, we often come across the words of Albert Einstein in daily life. Let's end this video with a good word. Don't mind those who say you're bad. There were people who told me that you are retarded, and I split the atom and gave it to your hands.